Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio, show 270, recorded at Big Dog Studios in Eugene, Oregon. This show is made possible by Ivor Isis Herbals at the Real Herb Market. Tanya adopts ancient herbal wisdom to our modern era with creativity and joy you can feel. When you try an Ivory Isis herbal product, the magic within stirs harmoniously. It's a must-try experience. Find them at therealherbmarket.com/shop/ivory-isis-herbals. Silver Creek Springs at the Real Herb Market. Ethically, wild-crafted, and lovingly grown botanicals rooted in practical experience are the core of Lisa's potent herbal line at Silver Creek Springs. Find them at therealherbmarket.com/shop/silver-creek-springs. Easy to read. What happens when you let go and let the plants show you the path? Ooh, organic, sustainable, local, healthy, earth-centered living. It's hard to go wrong when you follow the calling, but the path may be rocky, and at times, even then, the plants will provide. Today we're talking with Elise and Jeff Higley of Oshala Farm about following the plants into the farm and beyond. Now here are your hosts.
I'm Candace Hunter.
I'm Patrick Hunter.
And welcome to Real Herbalism Radio. Welcome, Elise and Jeff. It is so wonderful to see you today, or hear you, really.
Oh, thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
I have to tell you, the first time I heard about your farm was probably late. I probably should have heard about it earlier, but it was from Howie Brownstein and Christina Sanchez, and they were both raving about what an incredible farm you guys have.
Oh, we love them.
Yeah.
We didn't pay him too much money for that. That's a Howie joke.
He's such a wonderful man.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that Christina really pointed out was the care that you guys give to the land and to all of the plants. Almost, she didn't say as if they're your children, but that's the way she said you treat them with such tenderness and such care and such focus. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about how the heck did you get to that point? Were you guys born into farming and agriculture and herbalism or not?
Yeah, well, I can go part of it. Well, my grandpa was a farmer, but that was in Arkansas. And before, I didn't know about that actually until I got into farming. My great grandfather, apples, but and my grandma in the orange orchards in California. But that wasn't why I got into farming. I got into farming just because the herbs kind of ended up drawing us there. For me, I just was really looking to start a herbal tea line, and I really, really wanted to be connected with who was growing the plants. And I was excited about finding some places that I thought were growing the herbs. And when I went to source them and finding out more about the exact origin and where they were grown, I realized I was actually dealing with distributors. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, this just is crazy because these are herbs that grow around us and near us. You know, why are these being imported from all parts of the world? So kind of coerced this guy, Jeff, next to me right now into farming more herbs instead of vegetables. And so, in 2013, we got the opportunity to steward the land that we're on in Southern Oregon in Applegate, the 140 acres now. And we started, vegetable growing and adding the herbs in there. And we just kind of the herbs took over. So we were joking always that, the herbs kind of just somehow one day we looked at each other not that long into it. And we're like, how did this happen? Like, how are we in fields and acres of medicinal herbs? Like what happened to our life? So,
Yeah, and I didn't come from a farming background at all. I mean, we grew up in Southern California. My mom was an avid gardener, but she'd be the first to say that I was the last person to help in the garden. But, in my late teens, I really got inspired to start growing my own food, and that slowly evolved into wanting to farm more and more. And through several other, careers, I said to Elise, I really want to do more farming, and it eventually is what led us to Oregon, really, is the search for more land and better water. And, the rest kind of just fell into place.
Yeah.
It's been a slow evolution.
Is it harder to farm vegetables or harder to farm herbs? So I know in my garden, the vegetables don't do well at all. And the herbs are pretty happy. So.
Well, vegetables are definitely challenging. I mean, you're selling stuff fresh, so it's a very short shelf life. And I think, in general, herbs are fairly resilient. And for us too, there's a lot more predation on vegetable crops. So, we didn't have to put up a deer fence to grow a lot of the herbs we were growing, but all of our lettuces would be getting just at ripe, and then the deer would come in and eat a bite off of each head of lettuce along the row. And like, can't you just eat one? Sample them all. So there's definitely challenges, but
and one of the challenges, I guess, that makes herb farming, farming, for a living versus growing on small scale, just you don't have the yield data, and you don't have a lot of the support that you have in the vegetable growing industry, right? You have farmers, so many farmers that have trialed things, and you have data you can look up to see how much per acre you can get. You have how many plants you have to plant to get so many pounds of tomatoes or whatever it is. But you don't have that so much in small scale farming of herbs here in the U.S. So that's challenging.
Yeah, and vegetables, there's so much support from the state university systems. You can look up from OSU and get specific varietal information and all sorts of stuff through trialing and breeding and all this stuff. Whereas herbs, sometimes we can't even source the seed that we're looking for. We have to buy everything worldwide that we could find, and it's like, well, it's 1/50th of what we need, and we're gonna breed and slowly evolve till we have enough genetic material to grow it. So that's definitely been a challenge.
So you have to propagate your own kind of thing, so you get enough seed for a specific herb?
Yeah, lots of times we'll get requests for a specific crop, and we'll be excited about it, and we'll go out and we can't find any seed, and then we can come back and go, well, we can get this much, and then I think over 2 or 3 years we'll be able to produce enough seed or enough material to actually grow the amounts you need.
It's kind of changed over the years. We definitely have a larger focus on saving seed and ourselves.
Yeah, and it's been critical. I mean, herb seed's expensive. A seed in general is expensive, and we save probably 97% of our seed at this point, which is made a big difference in just a lot of factors, and just being able to produce profitably is really important in how we select seed and what specific varieties we're going after, and do they have the right constituent content, and there's a lot of dynamics in herbs. And me not being the herbalist, we'd get phone calls and I'd be like, how do you spell that? I've never let me look it up, and I'll get back to you. So there was a big learning curve there for sure.
That's interesting that I never would have thought of a lack of material. Because you walk out in the forest, there's herbs everywhere. Yeah, but I guess in a commercial sense, that changes the dynamic.
Yeah, exactly.
And honestly, that's how we started too. Is like when I looked around our farm, I was like, well, there's yarrow and there's plantain, and if they're growing here wild, I could probably grow them. So why don't we start trying to find people that will buy those? And that was kind of my first foray into like trying to grow stuff on a commercial scale. Was, well, what's growing wild around here without any help, and how do I help those along? And then we slowly started adding more and more crops in.
Now we have about 80.
So wow, on 140 acres, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
So do you find you have to make separate growing environments for the different herbs, like yarrow versus plantain versus? So it's not like a big vegetable farm where you just, here you go.
And we were definitely looking at the inherent nature of each plant. Some things, like it wetter, or they like more shade, or there's things that like rockier soils, or more just that heat to really become ripe. So we're really looking at where does that plant grow naturally, and how can we mimic that on the farm, based on different locations within the fields, and just how we can work them, work with them, I guess is really a better way to say it.
And I suppose the other part of it is you can't really mechanize the whole system, can you? So you're really a lot of hands-on.
It's a fine balance. Yeah, we do a lot of hand harvesting, a lot of hand planting, and then we try and implement and mechanize in ways that we can, especially with heavy lifting.
That makes sense.
Because also, in the end, people don't want to pay that much for their herbs.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are, we're looking at, global prices, and also, just like food, people want to have, don't want to pay a lot, basically. And so we also want people to consume as much as possible of herbs, right? We don't want them, cherishing this, jar of herbs that cost them X amount of money and they don't want to use it.
Right.
So you want them, to drink their nettles up and all the things that we know that are good for us. So, we feel like it's our duty as farmers to try and be as, resourceful and as we can about being efficient so that we can keep our costs down, but also paying our staff, more than a living wage, because it's probably the hardest job I know working on a farm. So
Yeah. And you guys have a decent sized team, don't you?
yeah, we
So-
have, for the amount of acreage we have a smaller team than some, but
we have like 18 people
in the height of the
in the height of the
season.
season.
Wow.
So it's a decent crew, and I mean, definitely there's this, kind of what we call back hours, and there's a lot of bending over, a lot of picking, a lot of heavy
Yeah.
lifting. I mean, how do we limit, especially as all of us on the team are getting older, with none of us getting younger,
Yeah.
how do we try to save people's bodies the best we can? And the reality is there's not, there's no herb equipment out there. There's not, like vegetable, there's tons of carrot pickers or,
Yeah.
there's all this equipment available for vegetable farmers. But when you go to look at herb harvesting or, root digging or a lot of these different things, there's nothing you can go buy off the shelf to put into play. So it takes a lot more creativity in trying to develop systems that work, and just trying to piece equipment together to kind of get your thing done.
And I think it depends too, we're a farm that believes in diversity creates a healthy ecosystem and environment. So we have so many different varieties of plants growing. If we were just a catnip farm,
Yeah.
we would have that totally dialed in,
Right.
We would have just a few things of equipment. We would have the staff knows exactly what to do with catnip. It's the same every year. You do this. But instead, we like to, get a little bit more challenged and and grow a variety. But that's also why, we don't have pest issues and things that farms have when they're monocropping or even just a few crops. So, we're rotating and doing all the things we know for healthy soil, and healthy plants. So I feel like, it makes things a little bit more dynamic.
It makes things more challenging, but it does, and it makes for better herbs themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who do just a giant monocrop of, peppermint and spearmint, which is really popular in this area. I would bet anything that, a sample of their peppermint or whatever it is, their mint that they're growing isn't going to be as potent as what you're growing, because your plants have to adapt to others in their environment, which is more like what the real experience is.
Right.
It makes for stronger plants, and it makes for stronger medicine.
Yeah, we believe that too.
Do you do a lot of adjuncting, like a lot more watering and fertilizing and stuff than like I'm thinking we had another farmer on last year, I think it was Tony, and he was really in the biodynamic part of it.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, if it just grows there, then it was meant to be there. and he was like against adding anything else to it, because he felt that if you coddled the plant, you wouldn't get as good medicine. What was your?
There's definitely some truth to that, right? I mean, we don't do a lot of coddling on the farm, but
when plants are stressed, they do have a tendency to increase the constituents, it seems like. So there is, and in general, herbs don't require as much, fertilizer and things like vegetables do. They're not as hungry. They're used to living in more of a wild form.
Mm-hmm.
It's that balance. Like sometimes we'll get people that go, oh, I want to buy yarrow, but we don't want you to water it. We don't want you to fertilize it because it increases the constituents. And it's like, well, we'd be happy to do that, but we're going to get 1/4 of the yield if we don't water it and we don't give it anything. So it's trying to find that balance of like, how do we work with the plant's inherent nature, but also not, not overdo it. We're not, trying to just throw stuff at it and make it grow this giant plant. We want the strongest medicine possible. And also anything we're bringing on the farm is really, it's just not good for the environment in general. We're moving a lot of weight of stuff, and we try to avoid as many things that we're bringing into the farm as possible. So what can we use already here?
Yeah.
Meaning like fertilizers or amendments and things, right?
So like you actually compost everything.
Yeah.
You got the expensive compost out there.
Yeah.
No, that's it's totally awesome that you're doing that. Do you have any animals on the farm too?
No, just humans.
Well, no,
we have a dog. We have a dog. Yeah. No one's allowed on the farm, out of the fields, unfortunately. But yeah. Got to keep that all separate.
We had visions of having more animals at one point, and then we just, there's only so much time in the day. And we just realized that having animals is a lot of work, and just try to focus our energy as best as we can.
And the beauty of being, where we are is that we do actually have a little bit of downtime in the winter, and the plants go dormant, and we get some cold weather, and animals, they
never
care. All year long.
All year long. Yeah.
All our friends who have dairies are like, "You are so smart. You only have
So you grow up plants that just grow, and you have no animals to take care of. This sounds like a dream job.
It's easy. It's easy.
Right. So
easy, I think, is a stretch there.
We're going to put you to work when you come to the farm.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll take pictures.
Yeah, take pictures.
Always use more photos.
I always want to do that, but I am not the farmer in our house at all. I'm the systems engineer. Let's build that. Let's get that done, and then I'm out. But I'll put the raised beds in. But
we need them all. And honestly, there's this real draw. Even the last few years, farming has been very. It's like a lot of people think that they want to be farmers, and especially when they hear, "Oh, I can come pick flowers at I pick calendula or chamomile or whatever." It just sounds like a very beautiful job.
Yeah.
And it is, but it's also very repetitive, and people get out there, and it's really fun for the first 15, 20 minutes. And then you realize that picking calendula for 4 or 5 hours straight isn't as fun as you'd imagined. And I think a lot of people are kind of disillusioned by what they thought it was going to be versus reality. So.
Or it's just that they're, to be able to be efficient, to be able to sell flowers by the pound of what people want to pay for it is a whole nother thing. So, and that's what we're kind of talking about is how do you have like reverence for the plants, love what you're doing in general, like the most of the time, and be able to provide plants to people that can be a price that people can afford. So it's always a fine balance.
We're excited to announce that Sassy Lama Apothecary is opening here at the Real Herb Market. Leslie Shaldua's experience with healing and reshaping life through gentle and powerful means comes through in her teas, herbal remedies, and beauty care botanicals. She knows exactly what it's like to kick your heels up and give whatever ails you a little sass, herbally speaking, of course. Find them at therealherbmarket.com/shop/sassylama.
Yeah, I feel like thanks to COVID, we are all in it. Like herbalism is rising to a higher level of notice. Like more and more people who normally would not have even considered herbs for anything except maybe their spaghetti, are starting to look more seriously at, herbs and plants as being a way to keep themselves healthy, keep their family healthy, protect themselves, which is increasing the noticeability and that, people are noticing and paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm seeing in the herbal community more and more is a stronger push toward let's do what's sustainable, what's organic, let's do that, and let's be willing to pay a little bit more for that. So I think we're going in the right direction, but I've got to believe that it's been very hard to pay or to sell at a rate that comes even close to covering, your hourly, as it were. I mean, farming anything takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of love, a lot of care. And farming herbs especially, some of those plants, you put them in and you have to wait 5 years before you can dig the roots.
They don't plant those.
Yeah, that's all right.
Chinese herbalist. No, I agree with you, and that is the beauty, I think, that we've seen, from COVID, and people really all of a sudden their supply chain has been rocked, right?
Yeah.
And they're starting to look at like, oh yeah, where are those from, and why can't I get them right now? And we are a small enough farm, and yet also have been growing enough years now where we're lucky that we can really talk with our customers and be able to see who we're a good match for, because we're not looking for someone who's looking for the cheapest chamomile. The person who wants our chamomile is somebody who like tastes it and smells it and sees it and it's like, I have to have that chamomile in my tea or my product because it is so amazing. I can't find that anywhere else other than what I would grow in my own yard and dry in like a small batch. So those are kind of the people that we're looking for, and then ways that we can be able to fundraise and be able to make some profit so that we can also give herbs away or give a discount to people who can't afford that price. So we've been doing a lot of that. And so that's felt like a good balance.
Yeah. And I mean, we're definitely seeing much more of a desire for domestically grown and regionally grown herbs than ever before. I mean, forever, we're not in competition with other herb farmers in our region or even in the United States. It's very much we're in competition with herb farmers in India, China, Northern Africa, Eastern Europe. And our buyers have always been very quick to tell us, well, I can get this out of Egypt for, $5. Why would I pay you 10,
Right.
And it's like, well, for us to grow it here in Southern Oregon, that's what it costs, and our labor costs are just so much more. And finally, we're starting to see a lot of those companies where every year they'd come and ask us for a bid on a crop, and they'd always just say, oh, no, we can get it cheaper. Finally, some of them are going, we're really trying to move, more regional. And maybe that price will work for us finally. And it's been a slow process, but that's where it's really challenging. It's not the farmer down the road.
Right.
That's our competition. We're competing in an international global market, and our labor costs are just so much more than a lot of the places these herbs are coming from.
And land.
Oh,
Everything.
land costs. Yeah, everything.
Well, I was going to say that that's for you, that's like a microcosm of that, but it's even in, my industry is the same thing. I'm competing with, people that are willing to do it at a fraction of the cost of what it takes for me to do it here. And I have same thing, right? I'll do a quote and people are like, oh, well, I can get that done in India for this. I'm like, you should go do that then, because I can't even,
Yeah.
Well, and I think that people realize there's the pros and cons of that, right?
Yeah.
Of anything that you choose. So the nice thing about working, with somebody who you're closer with or you can have a relationship with, especially with herbs, I believe is like you share that energetics with people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like that's something like people having a relationship of how, like right now we're in the wintertime, we are working with all of our contract buyers. And so like they have that relationship of like when their seeds are getting planted and all of that. And I feel like that makes their product all the more better in the end, because hopefully, if they're caring about their product from the very start of the seed and how the farmers are farming that, then their end product's going to be that much better. And they'll be able to tell that story to their clients that they sell to.
Right.
So.
Yeah, when I was a kid, there was a big thing about quantity versus quality. And I think it might have been my father, but I can't remember for sure, who kept pointing out to me because I was worried about price. I was, in my 20s. I didn't have a lot of cash to work with at the time. I was in college. Mm-hmm. And this person was like, well, do you want quantity or do you want quality? It's the same $5 you've got to work with.
Yeah. You
pick. And over the years, I found myself realizing that it's far better to pay the higher price and get the higher quality. Far, far better. Because the experience is much richer and much more satisfying, and it reaches into the depths of your soul, as it were. Whereas the quantity is just quantity.
Well,
It's flat.
teaching our son that, whereas
Mhm.
you know he wants to do things, but he said, "Dad, I don't have a lot of money. I want to go do this. I go to Amazon. I can go this." I'm like, "Well, okay, you can, but
Mhm.
when you do that, people locally may not have the job." And you know he's pumping gas at Fred Meyer, and I was like, "You want people to come to Fred Meyer, don't you?" He's like, "Well, yeah." I was like, "Then I think you should buy locally
Yeah.
whenever you can." You know.
Well, for us too, like that was the kind of initial, you know, you really nailed it on the head. Is we looked at it and said, well, we can't meet the price point that's out there. So how can we differentiate ourselves? And the only way that we saw was by quality. We need to have a better quality product than what they're buying on the market right now. And that took some real intention of how we were producing the product and how we, you know, created this final material that we're sending out. And that's how we were able to create a name for ourselves, was really hitting that quality note, you know?
And I think coming back to the original is just like why and how we started doing this was for our own tea line. And I'm pretty picky about what I what I like in my teas and how I like herbs to look. And so if it's not something that I would put in my tea blend, like it's not leaving the farm. So you know, we feel good about that. Like we feel like, you know, and it's not always right for everybody because we do a lot of hand processing. And so we have, you know, bigger irregular pieces and our aerial tops and leaves. And some people just love that. They think that's the best thing ever. It's great for loose leaf tea. And it's great because, you know, the pieces are bigger and it doesn't oxidize as fast. And you get to really have some kind of interaction with the plant material and see what it looks like. But if you're trying to stick that in a capsule, like that's not going to work.
That's not going to work. Yeah.
Or in a tea bag, you know, like in a tea bag, it's not, you're going to have to do some processing to get it down to smaller size. So, you know, it's not right for everybody, but it's okay because we're, you know, we're a small farm. So it's not the best fit for everybody. But yeah, so.
Yeah, there's a business coach that I followed for a while named Molly Gordon, and she always talked about the just right client. And it was always about finding the client or customer that fit what you offer perfectly. And everybody else, you don't need to sell to the whole entire world. You just need to find your just right clients.
Yeah.
And that's what it's really about. I mean,
yeah, it's hard though, right? As a, you know, whatever business you have, right? You're trying to survive, you're trying to make a living, and it's like you want to please everybody, especially at the beginning of a business when you're like trying to make your, you know, monthly payment. Whatever you're doing. You're like, sure, I'll do it, whatever.
Whatever it takes, man, whatever it takes.
All your soul and your values. You're like, I'm going to do this and over backwards to make it happen. So it's nice to get to a point where you can say like, actually, you're not the best, you know, customer. But yeah.
And you guys, you've managed to hold your earth-centered values through all of this journey of, you know, building the farm. How do you do that? I mean, what would be your advice to people who are starting out, whether they're farming or herbalists or in any business? How do you hold the earth-centered values during those hard decision-making points?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it, I mean, it's pretty easy for farmers, right? Because we're reminded every day, you know, our hands are in the earth. So that makes things easy. We have definitely, you know, having our mission and our values really written down as a business. And sometimes when we've had to make like growth decisions or decisions on costs and things like that, we go back to like, does this meet our values and our mission? Like, is this really what we're about? Or like deciding on taking a contract or something like that. Like one time we were joking, like we had this contract that pretty much all of our farm would have been in catnip. We were like, like paid our bills that year, but like, is that really what we're about? You know? So bringing, I think having that like foundation and like remembering back and like really remembering your roots and like why you started doing what you're doing, you know? You might grow and change and things shift in your business, but all in all, we remind ourselves of that every once in a while. Wait, is this what we wanted? So what do you have to say about that?
I mean, I think you kind of nailed a lot of it. I think a lot of it comes down to really having a clear vision and a really clear mission statement. You know, who are we? What are we about? And just sticking to that. You know, I mean, it's so easy to be swayed by opportunities or by, you know, just circumstances. And especially there's so much survival that has to go on in a business and as a farm. And just in life in general. But just going back to the, is this what we want to be about? Well, no, that, we got to make the decisions based on our values. And we've had to turn down some really great opportunities that weren't really great because they didn't meet our values, and on the surface, they look like, hey, this could really meet our financial goals. Yeah. But does it meet the big picture, And, oftentimes it came back and the answer was no. And, and sometimes we had clients that were said, this is really somebody that we can align ourselves with. It's not going to start out big. We're going to find a little window that we can get in there with, and then it evolves over time, and slowly you can expand upon that. But, I think Elise said a lot, we've seen a lot of farms, and even in our region, where the earth focus wasn't there. Yeah. And it's more of this, either whether it's monoculture or it's a spray mentality or whatever it is, where we're imposing our will on the plants and on the earth itself, which is so common in our society. Yeah. And really kind of looked at it and said, no, we're going to be more geared or focused on allowing the earth and the plants to tell us what's right and what's working, what's not working. And we made some decisions where we go, no, you know what, maybe that wasn't the best, and we had to relook at it. But it's a continual evolution.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I have seen not just farms, but people in general. I mean, gardeners, herbalists, but also people who are just interested in potentially buying herbal products, not really thinking about the difference between imposing your will upon the environment and the plants and bowing to the needs or desires or direction of the earth and the plants. And I love that you pointed out that difference, because it is, I mean, I think that when you're imposing your will upon something, you're also, I don't want to say stealing its energy, but you're dampening its energy. You're changing its energy, and you're stunting it. So if you let the plants guide you, they're going to create the space for themselves that's going to give them the most health, which in turn gives us the most health.
And, we always kind of bring back that focus of what's going to be best for our grandkids and our great grandkids, and kind of keep that, 7 generations mindset. How's this going to impact our future generations? And it's really easy to think of what we need right now to survive. And it's a lot more of a conscious effort to think about, well, how's this going to impact, our future generations? Our kids going to be able to farm this land? Will our grandkids be able to farm this land? Or whoever comes after us, because at this point, our kids don't want to do it. But I think that's, kind of keeping that in perspective of like, we can't just harvest. We also have to feed back. And what are we giving back,
Yeah, I think the idea of thinking 7 generations in the future is powerful. And I think it's something that's beginning. It feels like it's a seed germinating, just beginning to germinate, at least here in America. I think we're seeing in areas the very beginning of the soil almost breaking for it, but we're not quite there. And I think we're going in the right direction for starting to do that again. I think that's something that our great, maybe a couple more greats, grandparents were doing, just because that's what you did. And we haven't been for enough generations. We've caused a lot of damage worldwide. I mean,
sure. I mean, the beauty is that everybody can think that way too, right? Yeah. Like not just, farmers, but, as herbalists making products, it's like, what kind of, you see now more than ever, like these amazing new products that are compostable and biodegradable and recycled materials. And like, I think of all those things when we're packaging, that, we want to make an effort to make sure our packaging is not sitting on the floor of the earth 7 generations.
Right.
Like that's something I hope that our packaging's not here. So things like that. So
yeah, you guys have been moving in the direction of like away from plastics and all into very biodegradable, earth friendly, sustainable packaging. And that's incredible right there. I mean,
thanks. Yeah, it's been a big
it's challenging.
It's been a challenge for some. Most people are excited about it. Yeah.
Why would it be a challenge for some?
Well, so we actually don't ship out in any plastic except for, we have bigger contracts that are maybe like a few hundred to 1,000 pounds. They go out in big bags. and totes, super totes. But in general, when you order on our website, everything comes, we basically pack it to order. So if you're going to order nettle, yarrow, blue vervain, whatever you're ordering, we're going to take it out of the container. We're going to process it into smaller paper bags.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be, basically we say that this is a temporary vessel to get it to our farm, to your home. And then you're going to put it in something that is more permanent container.
Right.
Because paper is obviously not like, it's going to be impermeable.
It's hard for dry product.
But that all sounds beautiful and wonderful until you order 5 pounds of nettle, a pound of nettle, and it comes in, this giant paper bag, and you're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't fit into my gallon glass jar.
Right.
How am I going to do this? And now I need 3 glass jars. And so, people are having to get a little bit flexible, and, we're encouraging people to buy bigger, maybe they do buy, some kind of plastic bin, but at least they only buy one, and then they keep all their paper bags inside that one bin and then take it out and fill their jars as needed. But yeah, so it's kind of been fun because people are getting out of their comfort zone of having their little favorite plastic bag of herbs. And it's been, we've been getting some good feedback, and people are sending photos of what they're doing with their packaging, and use the paper to mulch their gardens or light their fires or whatever they're doing. So it's been good, but it is a challenge.
And unfortunately, it's not always the cheapest option to go the most sustainable route. As you know.
Yeah, so all our
But even like the stuff we can't get away from plasticking, or plastic is like our large bags where we're storing stuff for long term.
Yeah.
We have to store it all through the winter, a lot of our crops, and they're being sold pound by pound. Yeah. And if we kept it in paper, it would dehumidify and they would mold and all these problems. So we have big bags, but instead of buying new big bags every time, now we're steam sterilizing those, and we actually that's more expensive than buying new. But it allows us to use the same bag many, many times. Cleaning it out, sterilizing it, and putting it back into use. So there's a lot of times where we have to make decisions that we're looking at the bottom line, but we're also looking at the triple bottom line, right? And how that's having a long-term effect. And that the only way to do that is to carry the costs along to the buyers, and again, that puts us in a spot where we're having to be more difficult to compete sometimes.
But that's also better quality. I mean,
but people don't see that, like nobody knows all the trouble you have to do to steam sterilize all your totes.
Right.
But you feel good about it. You know what you're doing. So that's good, So
that's a whole nother labor component that I've
totally. Yeah, just the labor alone, it costs more money than it would have to buy the new bags. But
so we're not sending out stuff to the dump, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's too bad there's just not another way. But I saw that on your website. You had a blog post on that, and I was thrilled because I'm tired of getting things and having more garbage, trash, if you will, than the thing it was.
Yeah.
Buy a flash drive from Costco and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Wrap all our herbs and send them to you in those containers you can't have to cut open.
Yeah.
Right.
Apple that's in a plastic thing. It's or zucchini that's wrapped in plastic. It's
all the English cucumbers. Every single one of those wrapped in plastic. Why?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Well, it's for the journey from England.
Apparently.
So how can people find you?
Best way is to go to our website. It's oshalafarm.com.
Okay.
OSHALAFARM.
Are you
actually
on?
A Howieism.
What's that?
Oshala, little Osha. Yeah.
Okay. And then any socials?
Oh yeah, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, recently on Pinterest. I know there's not much there yet, but so those are the biggies.
Interesting. On a marketing thing, because that's what I do as well. Pinterest could be a really big place for you guys.
That's what we hear. Jeff was just saying like, why Pinterest? Another thing. I was like, don't talk about it.
Right.
Well, I can talk about a couple things off air for you, but yeah, that's a big one right now. A lot of traffic there. So
Like it's worth doing.
cool. Well, at the end of every show, what we like to do is we have a tag or a catchphrase, and we've now been asking all of our guests to say it with us. So what we do is we say it. It's called "Put an herb on it." So
Patrick will say, as always.
As
then the
always.
rest of us say, put an herb on it. You
Are
ready?
you ready?
Yeah.
So, as always,
Put
an herb on it.
Love it.
The statements made about herbs and products on this podcast have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA. They're not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided on this podcast or any affiliated websites is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. You should not use the information on this podcast and its affiliated websites for a diagnosis or treatment of any health problem. Always consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new vitamins, supplements, diet, or exercise program before taking any medication, or if you have or suspect you might have a health problem. Any testimonials, questions, or case studies are based on individual results and do not constitute a guarantee that you will achieve the same results.